Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. All right. I'm the host, Reese. You are?
David.
And you are?
Irina.
And you are?
Noah.
And off in a distant land, we have...
Cyrena.
AJ.
Close enough.
And today we are covering Pirates of the Caribbean On Stranger Tides, which came out in 2011. It's directed by Rob Marshall, who also directed Chicago, Memoirs of a Geisha, 9, Into the Woods, Mary Poppins Returns, and the upcoming remake of The Little Mermaid.
Decent.
Oh, no.
Another mermaid film.
Yeah. So the movie stars Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, Penelope Cruz. Should I have not said it like that? Penelope Cruz, Ian McShane, and Kevin McNally. It's written by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, who also wrote the past 3 films. And it's actually influenced by the novel by Tim Powers, also called On Stranger Tides.
So that's why that name happened.
Yeah.
I was wondering why it was On Stranger Tides, because it didn't quite make sense to me, because the previous ones were a little stranger tides than this one.
Yeah, this one's on basic tides.
Tides.
On normal tides.
Tide Pod.
Yeah.
They should have just called it Starbucks.
On this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, had y'all seen Pirates of the Caribbean On Stranger Tides before this viewing?
Yes.
Everyone? Let's start with you, David.
Yes, I saw this in theaters when it first came out.
Were you working?
Maybe. I think
this is one when you actually were working at the theaters.
I was working at the movie theater. Yeah, actually, I saw it with a friend of mine who also worked at the movie theater. We both saw it. It was great.
Cool.
And when I say it's great, it was great that I got to see it with a friend. The movie itself, not
friend?
very positive reactions, but, seeing it again, we'll see how I feel about it now.
All right, Irina.
Yes, I did. I didn't think I was going to go to the theater for another Pirates movie, but since it did have Ian McShane as the villain, I had high hopes because I really like Ian McShane. But I remember going in to see it and then being less than enthused about it.
Noah.
I didn't see it.
Oh yeah, you're the one.
Yeah.
You and AJ. Or actually, I won't spoil it. AJ, how about you?
I mean, Noah can finish.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Okay.
Well, he had finished. That's all he wanted to say. He hadn't seen it.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it either.
Okay, so we got 2 newcomers, and I want to speak for the 3 of us. I feel like we had not seen this since the theater, maybe?
Yeah.
Or at least not
I
in
haven't.
its... Yeah, completely.
It didn't. I think I left feeling that it wasn't really worth returning to.
Yeah, and I'm one of those viewers who, when I watch a franchise, I always have to start it back from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I can't just, I'm in the mood to watch Pirates 3. I just, I can't do that.
Just me then?
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. For me, I just can't do it. I have to start from the beginning, because otherwise I'm not getting that character progression that I want from film to film, and I'm just jumping into a certain point of the movie, and it feels incomplete.
Yeah.
It kind of changes with like TV shows that you really enjoy, because there's always that one season that you're like, I love this part of that show.
Yeah, it depends.
So you want to watch that.
For me, I agree with you on like sitcoms.
Yeah.
But if it's something like Game of Thrones,
Oh yeah, you
yeah.
have
I
to
have to start
Can't
from the
jump to
beginning.
the
start from the
highlights.
beginning. Yeah,
Yeah.
if it's an epic like that.
Especially
you
Sesame
start from the
Street,
beginning.
like all 40 seasons, you got, or however many they're at now, you got to start all the way over to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
otherwise,
character
like
development
Simpsons
there
and
it doesn't have the same effect if you just
gosh,
jump
and that
into the
character
middle of
development on Elmo, my goodness,
He's
it. What
changed.
an arc.
he really, yeah. I love the gradual change from just a kids show to I don't know the maniac
Violent
he is
porno.
now.
yeah, when he's just on a bender every
Yeah.
night, just drinking himself to death. Yeah. Anyway, y'all ready to get into the story?
I
Yes.
guess.
I want
Alright,
to talk
let's
more
do it.
about Sesame Street.
All right. In London, Captain Jack Sparrow attempts to rescue his first mate, Joshua Gibbs, from trial and execution. They are caught escaping and brought before King George II. The king wants Jack to guide an expedition to the Fountain of Youth before King Ferdinand and the Spanish Navy can locate it. George also reveals the captain for the mission, Jack's old rival, Captain Hector Barbossa, who is now a privateer in service to the British Navy after losing his leg and ship, the Black Pearl.
So, right off the bat, this movie feels different.
Yeah.
That said, this time watching it, it wasn't as jarring as it was back in the theater. Maybe it's just I was expecting something just as bombastic and huge as At World's End, and this one seems more stripped down.
To begin with, in the starting scene for every single one of these movies, they set it up with kind of like a cryptic intro, and this one was the only one that didn't do that.
That's true.
It has it. All it is just a couple of Spanish soldiers capture, or they pull up a old man in a net, and I guess he used to be a mermaid, or he came across mermaids or something.
I half expected Prince Caspian to show up.
No, I think he was one of the original crew of Ponce de Leon.
Yeah, before they went into the portal into the Narnia world.
I thought they just pulled him up from a fishing net, though, and he was just like way down
caught
in the
another
depths.
old man.
And then for me, like the only reason I could see him surviving that was he was a mermaid. Like, and I guess that's totally wrong.
A merman.
I'd love to see an old merman. That would be great.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right though, Noah. It had a diminished version of what
Yeah.
you're talking about,
Yeah.
where usually they have this intriguing opening, whereas this one it wasn't quite as clear.
Well,
I
with
guess.
all the rest, you kind of get that little goosebump feeling. Oh, here's the next installment. You know, I'm excited to see what happens. Kind of that Marvel effect, you know, where you're like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens in this one. But here you just kind of get, I feel like this is a side quest, you know, where it's not really, you don't have that same dramatic, this is the main
Or like
theme.
DLC.
Yeah.
Jack's side quest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one also, to sort of go along with what you were saying, Reese, the lighting and vibe of the movie when they start going into modern day London, which first off, our first time in London in the whole series, is it's brighter, it's more vibrant, it's way more. The whole vibe of it is just a little more playful than I feel like I'm used to with the Pirates franchise.
I disagree. I think it is less playful, and there's times when it's trying to emulate that same feeling of the excitement of the Gore Verbinski movies, and like the Hans Zimmer score is like blaring, but the energy level on the screen isn't quite matching it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I got. I don't think it does a bad job. It's just it doesn't have the same flair that the original
And that's
trilogy
Not
why-
the same energy.
I think
Yeah.
that's why we didn't like it, or at least I didn't have a positive reaction the first time seeing it, is because it doesn't have that same Verbinski feel. I think once you lose the director, it's weird how much the director holds in the feel of a movie.
That said, though, the director of this one, I feel like he took the reins more as the movie went on. Like, it starts off just trying to be what it was, and then it kind of changes slightly into something a bit different. I don't think it, like, completely saves itself, but...
I'd say the beginning for this movie is its worst part for me. I think it only goes up from the beginning, but the beginning it made me cringe a little bit.
Yeah, so you didn't like the interaction with Richard Griffiths, the Duke or whatever?
I did not like the whole, British nobleman,
Pompous.
whatever that was.
Watching you watch this movie was so much fun because you could just hear you groaning from the other side of the room.
But it picked up a little bit for me, so
Good.
I'll give it that.
The thing is, like, it's not poorly done. It's just uninspired, especially the chase sequence that happens after Jack Sparrow leaves the king's, I guess, where he's...
Is it a king?
Palace.
Or is
No,
it,
he's a duke. Sorry, the duke.
That's King George II.
Yeah,
Oh, it
they
is
said-
a king.
Yeah, which
Okay.
I guess before he was king, he was the duke or something like that. That's why he has that title. I don't know how royalty and
Well, there's a lot of
UK
honorifics.
works.
I mean, this is before the United Kingdom. This is while the Holy Roman Empire was still around. So, I mean, there's a whole string of,
titles.
epithets and all that stuff attached to their title.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, though, that this escape sequence isn't as successful, though, because the director, Rob Marshall, is very experienced with doing musicals choreography and lining things up with music. And it's just, it just doesn't come off as successfully as it did in the past films. That said, I do like how the plot to this movie is much more streamlined. Even from the very beginning, it's a lot less confusing. There's one destination, everyone is heading towards that one destination, and they all at least have a somewhat decent reason for all heading there. I think it all kind of makes sense.
You can follow it for sure.
Granted,
there
they
is not
do
too
kind
many
of pull
plots.
from the novel somewhat, although I think the writers claimed that they independently thought of the kind of story, and then they realized that, hey, this is actually Artie's story, so they had to buy the rights to the book. So
Embarrassing.
So I didn't realize this. Did they want, I don't know if you researched this or not, but did they want Blackbeard before reading that story, or...
that's what they claimed. They wanted to explore the Fountain of Youth and Blackbeard, which are in the novel. It's not a word-for-word adaptation per se, but I guess they felt it overlapped enough that they couldn't get away with, doing their story without infringing on copyright. So Disney bought the rights to the book.
Okay.
Good for them, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think Blackbeard's a good choice for a pirate to go with, and Fountain of Youth could be good, theoretically.
Although we haven't even gotten into Barbossa yet.
No.
Well, you're right.
Yeah, let's
There's
talk
a
about-
streamlined direction instead of the convoluted parts that were 2 and or 3 especially.
Yeah. This movie tries to take the more Indiana Jones approach, where it's, okay, let's do a single contained story, which is what I wanted them to do. Even that, I don't think it's completely successful, but they're on the right page.
Yeah.
In terms of prolonging this franchise in an interesting way. So I thought at the end of this chase, it was kind of funny how he just conveniently landed right in front of Keith Richards, his dad. So that bar scene.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to the bar scene yet.
Oh, we're not there?
No. This was a very brief intro with mainly the London chase scene.
Okay.
Well, the chase scene, I thought subpar. The whole kind of beginning sequence, to me, quite subpar, but it leads into an actual story that has a direction.
To me, it seems like the weakest point in the movie, and if that's the weakest point, then I think that it's on a decent track.
Anyways.
I think the one positive I would take from this intro is that Jack Sparrow's character seems pretty in line with how he's been before. I kind of like the return to almost that droll sense of humor he seems to have.
Yes.
And that's what I enjoyed about his character to begin with.
He is, dare I say, less over the top and zany in this
Yeah,
movie than he
even
was.
though he's
in
doing
3.
weird kind of acrobatic stuff, he's a little more toned down in the goofy side, which is how I prefer him.
And
Even
I
though they
maintain
showed him
the
as the
thought that
judge.
he should be he should be a character that's always in Pirates of the Caribbean, but not the main focus.
Yeah.
And also, as much as I don't really like his escape from the king's room area, there's a clever scene where the moment he's placed in that chair, he's looking at the window and he's looking at the chandelier and he's looking at the balcony. You see him it's like a first person perspective. You can already tell the gears are turning and he's trying to come up with an escape plan.
Yeah.
Whereas in other movies, he just kind of just fumbles his way into
Kinda
Something happens and
spills
he's like,
through a
"Oh,
window
guess
and
I'll do
lands on
this."
a horse or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Then he turns the heat up
you-
on Judi Dench.
Yeah. I hated
Oh
that.
my gosh.
It just seemed like an excuse for Judi Dench to be in there.
Yeah,
she's
cameo.
like, "Can I be on the next Pirates
And
film?"
then they did that also with Paul McCartney, but
Oh,
That's in
God.
the 5th.
oh, is that the 5th one?
Yes.
All right.
You're
Sorry,
having,
they
you're
kinda
having the
bled
same
together
problem
for me.
I have. Yeah, I start mixing up scenes.
My apologies. Getting ahead of myself. We could probably move on to the next portion.
Ignore
also
that.
I want to move on, but I also just want to say they show Barbossa for the first time in this dressed in very regal British
Admiral
yeah, he has the
colors
wig
or
on
something
and
like
everything
that.
and makeup, and
He's a
I
privateer.
did not like that.
I didn't mind it because I knew he wasn't genuinely part of the British Navy. He was just he's a pirate still. It's a means to an end.
I think
It got
it's
better for me.
because he's got the powdered wig on and everything, but he's still got the grizzled mane and hair and beard and everything. So it's kind of one
he
foot
de-
in,
he
one
de-
foot out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So to me, I can see both sides. First of all, I can say that when you're writing a movie, a character like Barbossa, whether his motivations are this way or not, you shouldn't put him in a position or write him in such a way that he has to be in British Army colors. But I understand his motivations and they explain it away so it didn't hurt me too much.
Yeah.
He's
wanted to see
a
what everyone else
character
thought.
where I always feel conflicted because I always want to see his face again, but at the same time, I don't want his character to be further ruined either.
Yeah, I agree.
I think this movie does better by him than the 2 sequels to the first one did.
Yeah.
I'll agree with that as well.
He has the most motivation to be on this quest versus everyone else, in my personal opinion.
Well, yeah, because in this one he's out for number 1, which is holds true to his character from the first Pirates.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue that story.
Jack refuses the offer and escapes. He runs into his father, Captain Teague, who warns Jack about the fountain's rituals. Jack learns someone is impersonating him to recruit a crew. The imposter is Angelica, Jack's former lover, who is also scheming to find the Fountain of Youth. She claims that she is the daughter of ruthless pirate Blackbeard, who practices voodoo magic and wields the mythical Sword of Triton that controls his ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge. While Jack is shanghaied aboard Blackbeard's ship, Gibbs escapes execution by memorizing and destroying Jack's map showing the fountain's location, forcing Barbossa to take him along. Meanwhile, after a failed mutiny aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge, Jack is forced to guide the crew to the fountain. Blackbeard seeks the fountain's power to circumvent his predestined fatal encounter with a one-legged man. Jack must find 2 silver chalices aboard Ponce de Leon's missing flagship, the Santiago. The fountain's water must simultaneously be drunk by 2 people from the chalices. Drinking from one chalice contains a mermaid's tear, will extend the life. The second person dies. Their past and future years of life transferred to the other drinker. Jack also discovers that the Black Pearl was captured and shrunk before being added to the Blackbeard's collection of other captured ships and bottles.
So here's a problem that I have with the movie is it seems like everyone and their dog already knows about the Fountain of Youth and all the rituals associated with it and how to obtain it and all this stuff. But no one's done it so far except everyone's trying to do it at the same time now.
I
Because
know,
one person found out.
because the Spaniards found out, and yeah, I have the same problem where it's just this is a further example of what I had issues with in previous ones is that everything is just common knowledge now and pirate magic is just a thing that's not even really a mystery anymore. It's just accepted as fact. And I understand lore and I understand superstition, but this whole, let's traverse the entire ocean for this Fountain of Youth that, we need a mermaid tear? Sure, I'm on board with that. Let's do it. Like, I don't...
I want to know how the first people figured that out, you know?
All they needed was a scene where someone who's under the Spaniards is like a mole or something, and he like passes a note to another guy, and that guy takes a ship over somewhere else.
Yeah.
And the word just like gets out to a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
Like that would be an easy fix for something like this, but they don't really show that.
I could probably get behind it if, this whole song and dance you have to do to get to the Fountain of Youth is basically kind of trying to deter people from trying to do it because those are all impossible tasks.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was some kind of red herring for something. I don't know. I could get behind that maybe, but this is just too, I don't know. I'm on board with you.
Another red herring is like Captain Teague literally tells Jack that's like, you absolutely need to get your ducks in a row before even setting forth on this quest. And, obviously that didn't happen because he just flies by the seat of his pants still.
Yep.
Yeah. As much as I don't like how coincidentally he ended up in this area and came across his dad.
That was weird.
This is the first, in terms of a cinematography standpoint and set standpoint, that I kind of like the lived-in feel of everything. I know the previous movies had that, but I like the set, the bar, and I like the subsequent fight, even though it's very like it's riffing off of the first Pirates of the Caribbean. It's very much that same type of fight. I do think it's well executed, and I actually like Angelica as a character, even though I don't understand. I'll talk about her later. I don't understand why she's so defensive of freaking Blackbeard.
Right.
Yeah.
But apart from that,
that's her dad.
I think she's an honest, good addition to the franchise, though.
I just don't understand why did she actually need to impersonate Jack? Because that didn't really serve any purpose other than...
She was trying to get a crew together, and she's a woman in pirate times.
But then the whole crew already knew her and respected her when you're on the ship.
Oh, did they?
Well, weren't they trying to get more outside people, and maybe just Blackbeard's lazy?
No, they were trying to follow Jack Sparrow because they thought she was Jack Sparrow. So they thought she was Jack Sparrow and that Jack Sparrow was the imposter. It's a little weird, but
yeah, it's a little confusing, and I feel like I could understand a reasoning, but there isn't really one given. She says that he's the only one she can impersonate, which does make it seem like it was a I'm a woman issue. But at the same time, like maybe they just didn't believe her to be a strong leader if it were female. But I'm not sure. It's not very clear.
Maybe Jack's name holds a lot of weight, and him wanting a crew will gather more people than...
You know
I think that
what?
was
Waving
actually the
around
point they
the
were
name
going
of
for.
Jack Sparrow would actually make me not want to join because he's
Yeah, he's got kind of a
he's notorious
reputation.
for like switching allegiances and all sorts of things.
Unless to them he's known as the guy who took down Davy Jones and
Came back from the dead.
all that kind of stuff. Like, it depends on what
I suppose.
They haven't really set it up that much to...
Unless
I don't know how people would find out, but
she was impersonating him to lure Jack Sparrow to her
maybe.
because of his
That.
ego.
And his
It's
compass.
a little bit of a mess, I'll say.
We can't figure it out, but for some reason, when you're watching it, you don't really question it. It's just easy to like, okay, she's impersonating him, whatever.
Maybe if we were actually watching it and listening to it right now, we'd be able to find, oh, that's why. But just
Maybe.
talking about it, I can't think
I
of
do
it.
actually think your reasoning is probably more likely that they were trying to get Jack out in the open and capture him. I think I'm more on board with that explanation.
It's
so
still
far.
a lot of this plot, though, still relies very much on coincidence.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's always been kind of a Pirates of the Caribbean thing, but it's
Yeah.
also kind of lazy writing.
Yeah.
I'll just, like, chalk it up to, I don't know, it works, but it could have been better.
It kind of reminds me of the way a play works, where everyone's kind of waiting in the wings for their part to come up, and then they come out and it's like, here, I'm Barbosa. I'm also here.
Oh, wow,
And
that's like-
look, this is happening.
That
and
fits in
then
line
they
with the
leave,
fact that this
and
guy
then
does
someone else
musicals.
comes in. Yeah, so it just has that sense that everything is just immediately there. It doesn't feel like as big a world as it was before.
I agree with that.
Are we at Blackbeard yet?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
And
we
it
had
kinda-
just got to that point, I think.
I'm going to say about Blackbeard, perfect casting, but he is underused.
Yeah.
He doesn't have quite the gravitas he should.
The thing is, he could, though. Like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Ian McShane is such great casting for this.
He's
You watch John
perfectly
Wick,
capable.
and he's got a lot of presence in that one.
Yeah.
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 In this, he comes off as threatening at first, but the more the movie progresses, the kind of more of a
Yeah.
less
At the-
threatening he becomes.
Adrian?
I have issues with some of the dialogue. Like, it seems overly pompous and almost condescending, like I don't know. And they're just, the delivery, like, I know all these actors are high caliber actors, but their delivery and dialogue is just like, what? Just like rushed together. And like, I feel like that's a director issue, personally.
Yeah.
I'll get into that more later. But the other thing is, I agree, because Ian McShane, I mean, even the voice alone, and what it is, in my opinion, is that they tell you that he's forbidding and menacing, but they don't show you. And it kind of goes back to like just developing the tone, that the director is good at doing the physical choreography, but not fleshing out the tone.
Exactly.
And even like Reese said, that the score, it's a Hans Zimmer score and it's impactful, but it just seems disconnected from what you're actually watching on screen.
It feels like a shell of its former movies to me.
Like, they should have introed the scene with Blackbeard torching a guy. Like, the beginning of the movie should have been Blackbeard torching a guy and finding out
Mercilessly.
about the Fountain of Youth somehow.
Yeah.
That would have been a more compelling intro to this
Actually,
movie.
Exactly. It would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But they decide to use that later. But it would also get that kind of intimidating nature of who Blackbeard is supposed to be. Now, who he is, I have less of an issue with, except for the fact that it's Blackbeard, the most infamous, like, known kind of pirate.
Yeah, actually based off a real
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, and who's supposed to be the most menacing, like, crazy dude
He's
out
got
there.
freaking little bombs in his beard.
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's actually, like, how he was.
There was
written
Irina, do you know
was,
about that?
but-
I feel like we talked about this a while back, but didn't he actually have a lore of him having like smoking bombs or something in his
He was
beard.
probably just really high and it was coming out his ears or something. You know?
I do think
That's how
that the design of
That was
his
a joke.
ship is pretty cool.
Oh gosh, Queen's Anne Revenge is beautiful.
I love the little staircase that leads up to his almost balcony outside his where he resides, I guess. But just
His
kind of
quarters.
this really dramatic looking ship is kind of cool. But other than that, I feel the same way you do, AJ. How his persona is kind of always talked about with kind of hyped up as being, oh, he's such a cruel, villainous guy. He's terrible. I'm afraid of him. And he comes out with kind of just playing the part of villain, but never actually acting incredibly cruel, not to the degree you would expect him to.
Yeah, he implies that he's gonna kill his entire crew. Like,
Right.
everyone hangs, but then he just, like, torches one guy on a boat, which admittedly looks really cool.
Yeah.
And also, you can't lose your entire crew, so I get why he
Right.
didn't kill all of them. But still, like, I want to see the scene after they're all strung up in those
Yeah.
ropes where he just, like, kind of gently lets them down.
Here's my question. Why does he need a huge crew
That's
if he
what I was gonna
basically
say.
commands everything?
I think it was. I
Right.
think he needed them for when they're actually on the island, like capturing
yeah.
the
Oh,
mermaids
that
and
makes
Mermaids.
Yeah.
He needed
Trekking
manpower
into
for
he
that.
needs some men.
I
he lost a
questioned.
lot.
I actually did that. I had that same line of
yeah.
thought where I was like,
and also
Yeah.
fighting and boarding other ships.
I
Yes.
suppose.
Dude, but like
But the thing
With
is,
the
it
ship
shows
like
that he
that,
can
though.
command other people's ships too.
did it?
And no,
Yeah, 'cause
later,
he says,
later it references, well, when Barbossa is
Yeah.
talking, like, we aren't to this point yet, but Barbossa talks about how they were on the Black Pearl and he had maneuvered the
Oh.
Black Pearl's ropes and
Yeah,
things
he
to
did.
start, like,
That's why he had to
throwing
cut off
people
his
off the
own
ship.
leg.
Yeah, and he was strapped up by
Gosh,
one
that
of the
is
ropes.
scary.
It's
so,
like a proximity thing. I
I
guess.
guess so. He
has
has,
a
like, some
50
kind of
meter
zone.
radius.
Yeah,
he can reach
I was
Bluetooth.
during the movie, I was questioning why he had this whole network of nets created to try and catch the mermaids when he can just, you know, pull his boat in somewhere and use the ropes to just wrap around them much more easily.
I don't know.
They're
There are so many
slippery.
things.
They're,
But
they're slippery.
I need those men to get him.
The question I asked myself is, do you feel like his mythos and backstory was explored enough? Like, I think some people had complaints in
No.
other episodes where they
Definitely
went, or
not.
it would be too bad to, it would be bad to go too far into someone's backstory, or
Yeah,
versus just letting you assume based on what you
So-
see.
yeah.
I think the mindset for this one was that they were trying to not be as grandiose as the previous movies. They wanted to do Blackbeard, but they were thinking, okay, do we just want another
Davy Jones.
Davy Jones, another Barbossa? Should we like make it so that he's not as threatening, maybe? And
Yeah, he's kind of just a early Bond villain.
yeah. I don't know. I would have liked I would have liked Blackbeard to have been more threatening personally, but at the same time, I can understand that train of thought of them wanting to subdue a following story and make it a little more about the adventure, less about the spectacle.
I think to answer your question, AJ, I think his character was presented in a way where I just didn't care. You know,
I
Yeah.
do agree
I
with that.
think
I
they
didn't care about
didn't
him.
really build him up enough for me to want to care about that. So he just felt like a generic villain
It's
by
a-
this point.
It's a character that only gets a mild pass because it's
Yeah.
Ian
Right.
McShane.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think he's a complete failure, but if you had any lesser actor in this role, it
Absolutely.
would be it would
Yeah.
be like a total bomb.
Exactly.
It doesn't help that the character of Scrub, who's like always chipper on this crew, and it's like, oh yeah, there's zombies. That happens.
It's
Just
whatever.
like everyone, no, just the mood on the ship does not fit the character and
doesn't-
doesn't
it
support the
doesn't.
character.
They were
That-
trying to be the funny guy. Like, that was his role.
I
was to
think
be
he
the-
I kind of liked him.
I did.
I did not hate him. He's like the Rigetti and whatever replacement.
Yeah.
Pintel.
But I actually like the half-assed mutiny that they try to stage. That just
Well, it went
completely-
well until Blackbeard came out.
Well, it was fun. It was
I
funny.
love
Like,
I love how he like incites Jack Sparrow incites the mutiny, and then the guy's like, "Yeah, mutiny," and he just runs out by himself.
Jenkins.
the one thing I'll
Exactly.
say that I like about Blackbeard as a villain that's different from the other ones is he's just so like he just doesn't care about being involved with any people. Doesn't care about anyone at all. He's in his quarters. He's literally the laziest villain I've ever encountered. It's just like, y'all do this for me. You do this for me. you do this for me, I'll just sit back and
Chill.
hopefully this will happen.
Oh, so he's a manager.
Yeah.
But you usually, even Davy Jones is a more active
Hands-on.
presence.
Participant.
Oh yeah, even Davy Jones, he was very active.
Yeah, this guy's just like, I can control the ship with the wave of my sword. I don't really need to do anything else.
Dude, it's perfect for him.
All right, so what do you feel about the on-screen romance between Angelica and Jack with the tango scene and all that stuff?
I will say that it's an awkwardly set up scene. I think they have much more chemistry, though, than whatever they were trying to set up between him and Keira Knightley. I know you might disagree, but for me, I was
mixed.
for me, I understood why they would be attracted for each other because they're both out to kill each other at different times,
Yeah.
and it's referenced in their past that they've really both kind of abandoned each other in different ways.
Now, here's a question: Does
There's a
Jack
go ahead.
having a serious love interest tarnish his reputation of kind of like a loner, big, just an individual?
For me, it kind of does. I think I didn't mind their chemistry. I recognize the chemistry there and I like it. But I don't like the concept of him being fully like, yes, you were the one or whatever. It just doesn't fit with the way his character is written.
So, for me, this is multifaceted. I think this is a necessity if you want to have Jack Sparrow as the lead versus a side character to your story. I do not think it was wise to have him be a lead in a story. I think he needs to be kind of off to the side.
Yeah.
But if you're going to make him a lead, you have to, tie him down to something.
Yeah.
He has to have some sort of motivation.
Yeah.
Whereas in the previous movies, he's just out to he doesn't care about anyone else. He's just
Yeah.
in this one. This is the first movie where he acts selflessly in a couple of scenes.
Yeah.
Where he actually does feel for this Angelica girl,
Yeah.
and there's times when he actually kind of shows that, and they don't do it to the degree that I would have wanted. I actually thought, if you're gonna have Johnny Depp be the lead of this movie, he has to really remove the facade of what Jack Sparrow is and show some vulnerability.
Yeah.
Which he still doesn't, but he at least kind of changes a bit. Whereas in the first three movies, he doesn't really.
I think to me it tarnishes a little bit, but I think if it were anyone, she's a better match for him than most people they could throw out there. I think her character kind of balances his in a way where there's mutual respect, but and I think they did kind of balance it in a way where he didn't outright really commit to her, so it didn't bother me as much as it could have.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I mostly think that they do have chemistry. Maybe it's not something that was necessary to convey on, but seeing as they did it, I don't think they could have done any better than her.
I think
as far
Penelope
as
Cruz holds her own.
for countering Jack Sparrow, because the whole adversarial kind of love is exactly the kind of love that Jack Sparrow would have if he did have it.
What helps is that she has her own motivation and her own kind of desires too, outside of just
The conniving and the scheming, it definitely mirrors Jack.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, sure, they might have feelings for each other, but they're both too selfish to give up what they want more than that. So,
and I would say that actually built a stronger female character than Elizabeth.
Definitely,
I agree. I actually think that she.
Yeah.
I like.
This is a female role that makes sense in this situation.
But I like her and Jack better than I like Will and Elizabeth in 2 and 3.
Interesting, yeah.
There's actually a very good scene later on in this movie where Jack is talking to Gibbs about how he has quote-unquote stirrings for Angelica. And I was like, yes, that is honestly exactly how Jack Sparrow would express to someone that he actually has feelings for someone else.
You mean feelings, sir? No. Well, yes.
Yeah, and his expression is just perfect. Like, I actually think this is a decent performance.
Yeah, and I actually didn't miss Will and Elizabeth really at all, personally.
Yeah. I thought their
didn't
arc
either.
was complete, whereas Jack Sparrow, I'm curious to see what adventures he goes on. I just wish he was still kind of pushed a little more towards the side.
I think your Will and Elizabeth situation is basically just the classic Romeo and Juliet dilemma where we really don't need more story on them. It's just one little facet of a story. You have the young lovers, kind of similar to Les Mis, where I don't care about Cosette or the other guy. But their story involved in just the grand scheme of things just adds to the story itself.
The grander tapestry.
Yeah, so the following Will and Elizabeth just seems kind of like a fruitless endeavor.
That's old hat, man. The Queen Anne's Revenge heads for Whitecap Bay to find and harvest mermaid tears. After managing to lure in a mermaid, she summons other mermaids to attack the crew before Jack causes an explosion that scares them away. A mermaid named Serena is caught, eventually gaining the affection of Philip Swift, a captive missionary on the Revenge. Reaching Ponce de Leon's ship on an uncharted island, Angelica and Blackbeard coerce Jack into retrieving both chalices. Jack locates the decaying vessel only to find Barbossa already there. They discover the Spanish have beaten them both and have already claimed the chalices. Jack and Barbossa team up to sneak into the Spanish camp and steal the chalices. They are captured, however, and Barbossa reveals he only wants revenge against Blackbeard for the loss of the Black Pearl and his leg. Jack and Barbossa escape with the chalices. Meanwhile, Serena is tricked into shedding a tear. Blackbeard collects it, leaving her to die of exposure, while Philip is forced to go with them. Jack returns with the chalices and bargains with Blackbeard for Angelica's safety. Jack's confiscated magical compass and Gibbs' release. In return, Jack will give Blackbeard the chalices and lead him to the fountain. Blackbeard agrees, and Gibbs is set free with the compass.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So the mermaid capture. How'd y'all feel about this action sequence here?
Like I said, he should have just brought his boat around, like pulled up and just sent out his little feelers.
Okay, but he didn't do that. How'd you feel about what happened?
I'm just going to say I liked it.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of like a horror movie. It's kind of a Jaws build-up where they're kind of in this boat and the tension is building. The mermaid comes up and they start to sing this song. I liked the song, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
Yeah.
Even though they're bad at singing, that part.
Yeah, and all hell just breaks loose, and it just becomes these mermaids are
cool.
I like that these mermaids.
Mermaids.
I like that these mermaids are hostile and
They're vampires.
Well, I think they should have just called them sirens instead of mermaids.
Well, they called her Serena.
Then they could just call her Myrma.
Isn't Serena mermaid in some other language? I think I read that somewhere.
I don't
Is
know.
what?
I think Serena is mermaid in some other language.
Probably.
I maybe. I'm not sure. Is it worth it?
It is
Either way.
Greek for mermaid.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Wow, they
I
really
just
reached for that
remember-
one.
That was a quick lookup, so
That's
good for
what
you.
I'm here for.
Yeah.
I will
But-
say that.
yeah.
Well, I want to ask a question actually. AJ, did you think that the mermaid looked like Amanda Seyfried?
The first one, not the real one.
Yes.
Yeah. We all thought,
did.
is that Amanda?
We actually paused it and we're like, wait a second. But we
I
all
actually-
thought it.
The thing was, after that, I had deja vu remembering the time I watched it in theaters and thought it was Amanda Seyfried then.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of reinforced in my head upon watching it a second time that it was. Until
Yeah.
we finally decided, no, that's not her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something's
Well, you see
wrong.
her later in.
It's because Irina badmouthed Colette.
Yes, a different cassette.
Because that, yeah, sorry. I can't even. I'm pulling the. Nice.
Do your Eddie Redmayne.
No.
My name is Eddie Redmayne, and I'm here to play on the new pirate movie, Fall in Love with Cassette.
Ew. Okay.
That was beautiful.
Can you
was
imagine
good
if
enough.
Eddie Redmayne was the missionary
dude, he
and she
probably
was
could
the
be.
mermaid?
Actually, he would have done a pretty good job. If we're being honest here,
I do like
I'm
Eddie
not.
Redmayne.
I'm not in love with
tired
Eddie
of his
Redmayne,
face.
but a missionary type in pirate era would be a little eccentric. Maybe.
You think that the missionary is eccentric in pirate movies?
Oh my gosh, David, what are you saying?
I don't even know what you're
Where are
talking
we going
about.
here?
I give you a
To
3
the
out of
next
10.
part
I
of
give
the
you a
plot.
2 out of 10 for
The
that.
mermaid
anyways.
battle.
0 out of 10.
So the mermaid battle. I think was
Yeah.
one of the better parts of the movie that better justified its budget. It looked really good, like the water effects and just it felt like a big battle and a struggle, especially with like all the fire and the lantern oil and all that stuff, and just the swarming, teeming water.
Also, I like that this movie, as much as I like how many big swings the previous films took, I like that this one is stripped down. It doesn't feel the need to have a bigger monster than the Kraken or a bigger maelstrom than the one in 3. It's like, no, we got mermaids and that's good enough. We're just gonna kind of amp up the tension, and we're gonna have kind of this horrific action sequence where mermaids take down a couple dudes and take them down to the depths of the sea. Yeah, and they end up capturing a couple.
Because the real monster is man.
Crew when you have a zombie.
I'm gonna put on like my critical hat for a moment. So the thing is about this movie as a whole, first of all, I'll say something good first. It doesn't. Sorry, I know I said I put on my critical hat, but
Critical can be positive.
Yeah. Well, both sides. First of all, this movie minorly offends me in certain areas. Like it doesn't really make me mad at the decisions they made or this. I can be like, okay, whatever. That's whatever. Like, okay, that was kind of cool. Oh,
they didn't
that
play
was
chess.
Not great.
Yeah,
but
they didn't play chess. They didn't have any puppets.
Yeah,
that we know of.
That we know. Yeah, who knows with
Except for the main characters, they paraded as puppets.
Oh. But to be more critical of it, they also do not take any leaps. Like they don't
not
really,
swinging for the
they don't
fences
do
in this
anything
movie.
ambitious. They're I don't remember who said it, but they're definitely playing it a little more safe with this one.
It's
I
almost
think we
as
all
if
talked
this
about
is the Force Awakens of the Pirates franchise.
I suppose.
Kind of
Let
recreating
me
the first
stop
movie.
y'all before you talk too much on a high level. Like I don't know if you want to save it for your review part.
I don't really speak too much during my review portion.
Yeah, because he gets it all out now.
Yeah, I like to get my stuff out now, and then I pretty much sum it up.
Yeah, and then you
At
say
that point.
meh at the review.
Meh.
All right, so we did get through sort of the mermaid fight, but then Jack goes over to find the chalices on board Ponce de Leon's ship, where we have our sort of what was it called?
that
Like
was
a
neat.
seesaw kind of.
It was
You're
like a balancing
passing over
act.
the whole like adventure to like where they get to that bridge and there's that whole dumb scene with the six
Sorry, I'm just
pistols
reading this.
where 2 are loaded.
Wait, is that next? Because that's not what we have
That's
on our script
before
next.
that's before the Ponce de Leon
Yeah,
ship.
it's before the ship. Because that's
Curse
what
you,
they
AJ.
needed to do to get there.
No, he did a great job. Let's talk about that real quick.
When Angelica and Blackbeard coerced Jack into retrieving, that's when the whole coercion was with the Russian roulette thing.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was okay. That's
weird.
I'm gonna admit that I am biased, like for this franchise. I'm very forgiving of it in certain ways, and my scores reflect that. But this scene, when they're debating who should jump off into the water, I tried my best to make sense of it, and it did not make sense. Like it came close, but it was still like.
Well, they never explained the logic behind why Blackbeard wanted to do it the way he did.
And why they were in such a hurry. Like I still don't understand why. Oh, we have to do this now. Like hurry up, let's do it now.
Because the Spaniards, AJ, the
Oh,
Spaniards.
That is why. Yeah, that is why they knew the Spaniards were coming.
It's
They were
funny that
waiting,
the
but
Spaniards
still.
beat them to it anyway.
Yeah, the Spaniards were already there, but for some reason they still showed up late to the
No,
party.
they didn't beat them.
No,
there.
the thing is, the
What?
Spaniards beat them to the ship, but they needed them to find the fountain because he had the compass and whatever.
Oh.
Yeah, they didn't explain that very well, to be honest.
But
It wasn't that bad.
the thing I don't understand is I was trying to figure out that whole scene, and I just felt like there had to be an easier way to coerce Jack into going
Yeah.
than just let's create an elaborate game.
Yeah, he
to
literally
make you
risked her life, like
For-
in that moment.
But then if he were to shoot her, he would lose his leverage over Jack.
Yeah, exactly.
But
like,
then,
I know he doesn't care about anyone's lives, but still, like, why even?
it just felt like kind of a dumb solution to an easy problem.
Couldn't they
and-
just get his voodoo
but
doll
also
and
the-
put it next to
Okay.
fire and be like,
thirdly,
jump?
why? Actually, why do they need Jack? They just need his compass.
So
He
the
knows
only
where it
thing I can
actually is, though.
explain for him is
The compass leads, though.
Yes, the compass leads, but he's basically Blackbeard uses people to get what he needs without him having to do it himself.
Yeah.
However, sending Jack by himself, there's no guarantee Jack will come back. I don't know if he's banking on the fact that he is in love with her.
I think
but
that's what they were banking on.
that's still a very loose connection. I
agree.
It's not a very solid ground.
It's not stable
yeah.
at all.
That's another iffy point.
Yeah, especially since he's like, I'll just shoot her, and he's like, you wouldn't do that. It's like, okay, I'll maybe shoot her with, 2 bullets and 6
Possibly a
different pistols.
gun that might shoot her. Like,
Dude, also, like, why just invent a revolver, dude?
Also, I was upset that he threw the freaking voodoo doll down there. Like, isn't that also a reason to kind of have Jack under your command?
Yeah, like David
Having
said,
this-
just use the voodoo doll to like compel him.
yeah,
He could have just jumped off by holding a fire thing next to it and be like, all right, jump, or you're going to be burned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been made clear that Jack can be easily subjugated by pain.
Yeah. This is the biggest hurdle in the movie for me, though. Like,
We had
once
to
I
pause
got
it a couple times.
once I got past this, like, yeah, y'all are right though. There's easier solutions to this problem. Like, they didn't need to like drag this out into some.
Yeah.
It's like you said, because
There's a
the
bigger picture
driving force behind this is coincidence. So they didn't have a coincidence right
Yeah.
that moment, so it's noticeable. But
Yeah.
so what moves the plot along is coincidence, and then it's like, oh, we don't have a coincidence to make this happen. Let's just kind of
Shoehorn this
try
in.
to make something work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, they didn't have to have this dragged out sequence. They could have just ended with the opening statement and just had Jack Sparrow agree in the beginning, and I wouldn't question it as much. I'd be like, okay, that's weird that he agreed, but let's just move on with the plot. They just decided to drag it out in this nonsensical way that didn't need to be there.
Yeah, I think they had to peel him off from the rest of the group and have him on his own.
Yeah.
We
So
did.
that he could align with Barbosa.
Yeah, so they can
Which-
have their little side adventure.
Which, by the way, at this point, I had decided that, actually, after in 3, I had decided that it's not really the Barbosa I know and love. Mm-hmm. So by this one, it really wasn't
I agree.
the Barbosa I know and
Yeah.
love, and I was a little more forgiving of the fact that they actually weren't really at odds this time, and I kind of enjoyed that they're like, okay, let's team up for a
I
minute.
actually liked them working together.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like this. For once, they have this moment where they're not trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
And they actually learned something about one another, which was interesting. Like, it kind of added depth to
They had a
both
slight
characters.
camaraderie, like they actually had in the past been, captain and first mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, mutiny. Let's forget about that, and the revenge bullet in the first one. Let's forget about that.
Well, they had to. You got to move past it eventually.
Yeah.
You can't just be stuck on
Okay.
that all your life.
But okay. My real annoyance is just that Barbosa
Is not
didn't
the same.
end in the first one.
I think
I
we can
enjoy
all
seeing
roughly
him
agree with
always, but I think his story ended in the first one, and it should have stayed that way.
I think this movie would have been worse without him, though.
That's possible too, yeah. But at the same time, how do you know what kind of alternative they could have had if they hadn't had him?
We're getting into hypotheticals here. Let's try to talk about the actual point.
Yeah,
of the
like
movie
rubber
and this-
palm trees, like one bends and one doesn't.
Hey, this is straight out of
I
Looney
thought that was
Tunes,
kind of
man.
iffy.
Okay.
Also,
wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
We need to also talk about Philip and Serena, this burgeoning romance.
Do we need to talk about it?
Yeah, I think we should.
It didn't hurt, but it wasn't. I didn't feel anything. I don't understand the chemistry.
I think it slightly works. I don't think
actually
it.
did
I don't
like it.
think it affects the plot in one way or another, but
I don't think it was necessary at all.
I didn't think it was bad. I think it's better than
No.
what we have in Dead Man's.
Okay, so here's
Dead
here's
Man's
the
Telling
thing.
Tales.
It's not outright bad, but it's not necessary either.
Yeah.
It is to the plot, actually.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
'cause
they only
he's-
make it necessary because they have to get a tear. But
Yeah, that's why it's necessary. The
dude,
tear
they
is
could have just had like a mermaid baby or something. Have them,
they-
like
no.
get the
This
tear
this
that way. I don't know.
the plot hinges on these two characters, so you have to kind of sell that romance, I
yeah.
guess. And I did believe it, even though it was not super strong. I did believe that this guy Philip, who we don't care about, falls in love with this Serena that we also don't really care about.
Yeah. I think what helps is that he isn't displayed as a leading role either.
Yeah.
He's just kind of found on the ship. He's somewhat given more lines than other people, but you don't feel like he is supposed to be your main character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
Like I said-
apparently he's only on the ship because Angelica's like, my father needs to become good, so I just got this
So I
priest.
picked up a random young priest.
No, they were gonna kill him.
Who's
with,
got like
this other crew.
6-pack abs,
Okay, no.
blue eyes.
Okay,
and,
you're
like,
exaggerating. He was not that great in shape.
dude, he's pretty in shape.
He was fine.
He
He
had
had
pirate
He's fine.
bod shape,
He's
which
like,
is like
whatever.
not bad, but no
I don't know,
six pack.
There was a little pooch at the bottom end of his.
Whatever.
He was in decent shape.
He looked pretty good shape to me.
Irene is right. They
Uh,
both felt like novices and outliers from the respective groups, so they kind of gravitated
Yeah.
toward each other, and it felt more natural than it could have, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one where you don't really care if it's
Yeah.
not like this huge romance because it's just they're the young lovers. There you go.
So,
I think
yeah.
it's necessary to the plot, and they did the bare minimum to make it work.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, to me, I don't know. To me, I just feel like, there should only be one romance in a movie.
that's a very narrow-minded way of thought.
I don't
Well,
know.
technically-
Okay, like, look, I'm actually not hurt by it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it felt superfluous to me to have like two different romance
At
plots
least there
going
wasn't
on.
a love triangle or a love
Yeah,
square.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's
in
why.
this.
That's why.
Yeah.
Like I said, this movie to me, it doesn't offend me really.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's not making me happy that much either.
I
But
see.
not
there-
making me
there-
happy.
There are a couple scenes though, like there are a couple aspects of it that are like, oh, that's not bad.
I'm less concerned about the romantic interest and more concerned about them presenting this concept of Angelica wanting to convert her father and save his soul, where they mention that, but you never really feel the intense need for her side to actually help her father. Like I get that that's a driving force in the plot, but it never feels like it's actually really significant.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
kind of thrown in there.
I would have understood. It would have made more sense if her character was like 15 years younger.
yeah.
Like
yeah.
more impulsive. But
Yeah.
she's like a full-grown woman.
Yeah.
Like set in her ways already. The fact that she'd be so like hinged to her father, who is clearly an
Yeah.
a-hole.
The fact
But
that
it's her
all
dad.
that they did was we have this guy here and that's it. Like
Yeah.
she doesn't really make any effort in any other way. I feel like it would have been more significant if, movies need moments between characters where there's some sort of dialogue where you get to know them, and there was never that father-daughter talk.
Yeah, you're right.
That you felt the urgency of her wanting to help
That-
her
They
father.
could have
And
had
that-
him like manipulating her in
that's-
some kind of way.
Yeah,
Well,
they
for-
needed.
I was just gonna say, I still was like, for most of the movie, I was still sold that she was manipulating him and she like still
Yeah.
scheming against him. But I guess in
Yeah.
the end, she was really doing it out of devotion to him. But
yeah.
Yeah, it would have
she-
been much better if that were the case.
I don't agree with the direction they took with her character, but she does say on the ship before they even arrive at the White Cove that she is actually Blackbeard's daughter. She tells that to Jack Sparrow, and he's like, "Oh, so you lied to me by telling the truth.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that
Yeah.
or whatever." So
Yeah.
it set it up in the right way, but I still don't agree with that.
That should have been like
decision.
a fake out where she's being even more deceptive.
another red
That would have
herring.
made her more
Yeah.
interesting. I agree.
Exactly. Yeah, red
It
herring.
was
That's
way
the
more
exact-
straightforward than they kind of let it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have liked it much more if she was kind of pulling the strings on Blackbeard and she ended up being the secret villain.
It
Yeah.
would make a little more
Yeah.
sense with the way that this was presented.
Or not even the villain, just wanting to be the captain of that ship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I mean by like secret villain is what if, Blackbeard's not actually Blackbeard and she's like, actually the captain of the ship, but she's using Blackbeard as a figurehead
Yeah.
that she controls.
That would be interesting.
I'm curious.
Like I think that would have been interesting.
I'm curious if Disney and Bruckheimer were like, okay, after the third one, literally no twist. Like it's straight shot. Like what you see is what you get.
Yeah, it's possible,
it could be.
yeah.
They just wanted to simplify things because
Well,
that was the
I
criticism
give
for
them
the
credit.
other ones.
Yeah.
That is this
I
movie.
give them credit for that.
Yeah.
Like
It's
I
safe.
was desperately in need of a more simple plot after
I agree.
the past two films. Anyway, let's move on with the plot.
There we go.
At the fountain, Blackbeard's crew is confronted by Barbossa and his men, and they battle while the two captains duel. The Spanish suddenly arrive to destroy the fountain, believing its heathen power an abomination against God. They crush the chalices and throw them into the swamp. When Barbossa stabs Blackbeard with the poisoned sword, Angelica pulls it out and is cut and also poisoned. Jack scrambles to find the discarded chalices in an attempt to save Angelica. Barbossa obtains Blackbeard's magic sword and gains control of the Queen Anne's revenge. The Spanish army leaves once the fountain is in ruins. Philip is mortally wounded, but finds and frees Serena. She helps Jack retrieve the missing chalices, telling him not to waste her tear, and returns to Philip. With Blackbeard and Angelica both nearing death, Jack retrieves the last remaining drop of water from the destroyed fountain and puts the tear in one of them. Knowing that one of them must be sacrificed, he wants Angelica to drink from the chalice containing the tear. Instead, Blackbeard drinks it, asking his daughter to save him. Angelica agrees and drinks from the second chalice. Jack reveals that he actually switched the cups. Angelica's wounds are healed as the fountain fatally consumes Blackbeard's body, killing him.
Okay.
So, one thing I liked about that, I'll just cut to the ending, was like that switcheroo was very Jack Sparrow.
Jack, yes.
Very Jack Sparrow.
It was also very Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah, that too. It was the Holy Grail type.
The Last
situation.
Crusade is what I'm thinking with
The chalice.
the chalices,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah, that's
Or
the
Princess
Holy
Bride.
Grail. Isn't it?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. And
Well, it
another-
has the Holy
Yes, it
Grail.
is.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
it
But
is the Holy Grail.
I thought you were calling it the movie was called the Holy Grail.
No, the
which
movies.
is no.
I know what.
Well, the way you said it made it sound like we were.
Anyway.
clear.
I said. To be fair, I
By
said
the way,
with the
I
Holy
forgot
Grail.
to draw. I forgot to draw another connection. I think Angelica is a very Marion type
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
She's a scorned lover with Indiana Jones, just like Jack Sparrow is with Angelica.
I could see that.
They both have significance to the plot and because of some artifact or connection to a main character.
Yeah.
And the whole film kind of hinges on them disagreeing and working together,
Yeah.
even though they don't want to.
Yeah,
Towards
but they
the
also
goal.
kind of do.
Yeah.
The franchise as a whole definitely has nods to Indiana Jones with the,
Yeah.
Jack looking after his tricorn hat. And
Yeah.
then, like, even there were some, like, scenes that were really kind of, I don't want to say subliminal, but, like, just a shot recreation in the first movie to
Yes.
Raiders.
Yes.
And even the discovery of this Fountain of Youth, it has a very Goonies, Indiana Jones feel to it, where they go into this grotto, and they kind of just something's different, and the water's like raising towards the ceiling or being lifted towards the ceiling, defying gravity, and it ends up in this kind of portal that leads to the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the most kind of intriguing locations in any of the Pirates movies that kind of brought me back to the first one in a way positively, because it was simple while also being wondrous.
Yeah.
And I just kind of admired it for bringing it back down to that level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked it.
Just to throw in our casual, random Lord of the Rings reference, it actually kind of reminded me a little bit of Lord of the Rings when, speak, friend, and enter, whenever they're in the sort of tunnel, trying to find their entrance into it, and they're like, how do we get in?
Mines of Moria? Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that. I really liked that this wasn't trying to sell itself on just pure special effects and flair. It was like, here's a location. The entry to this location isn't some elaborate special effect. It's just...
It was kind of elaborate.
It
in a
is.
I
way.
mean, for
but-
their
but it's-
budget, it definitely could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was more like just a simple kind of like, oh, I clanged these glasses together. I didn't say the right thing. And, oh, you actually have to say this. And now we're in. And while the actual Fountain of Youth looks cool, it's not nearly on
unassuming.
the scale.
Aqua de vida.
It's not nearly on the scale of anything from 2 or 3.
Well,
in
the
this
thing is,
franchise.
it looks to me. I actually liked the look of the Fountain of Life because it looked natural. It didn't look like some kind of intricate, man-made, wondrous, mysterious, glowy thing.
Yeah, in the last movie, this would have been like a whole kingdom,
I know. I know.
Surrounded.
Shambhala,
a massive monument.
Atlantis. Yeah. The more you say it, the more I agree. This is almost Indiana Jonesy as far as
Jonesy.
how the plot goes. They even have almost a kind of Ark of the Covenant
with the mermaid.
with a mermaid
Yeah, they're
type
carrying
thing.
it through the
Yeah.
through the jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But should we move on to the next portion, or
Let's see.
I don't think there is a next portion.
There is.
there is?
Oh,
Nobody
And we
expects the
didn't talk
Spanish
about-
expedition.
Exactly.
Oh
We
yeah,
do
we
have
were
the
sorry.
Spanish. No one
we
expects
didn't
the
say
Spanish
anything about
expedition.
that. I actually quite enjoyed the how the Spanish just like, all right, we're here and we just destroyed everybody and now we're leaving.
I
oh my
liked
gosh,
that,
that
but
was
al-
so great.
I liked it, but also I was like, y'all could have been a little more thorough in destroying
Yeah, I
the
agree.
Fountain of Youth and the chalices. They're just kind of like, all right, I'm gonna step on this and throw that in the
Do a
water,
good job.
and also we'll
Okay.
pull
It is
this
done.
we'll pull this pillar down on the Fountain of Youth, and now we'll leave.
Yeah, I actually,
Well, they
now that you
also-
mention it, they kind of did this thing. They went on this huge expedition with a bunch of troops,
Well,
subdued
they just wanted to
everyone,
get
and
in
then they're
that-
like, all right, smashed a little bit, and we're good.
They were doing it
See
for
you guys.
God, man. And also they framed them almost in a positive light.
Yeah.
You know, when it shows the one guy standing up, it's like, this is England, and they just shoot and kill him, like, take a note of that man's bravery.
Yeah, someone make a note of that man's bravery.
Yeah, they weren't really bad. They were just
They weren't belligerent. They were in and out. They're like,
They
we did
weren't-
our thing, and we're
they
gonna
weren't-
take
Taking
on.
the high road. Like even when
people.
Barbosa
Yeah.
spots them, like they don't even like give them the time of day. They're just like looking towards their goal.
yeah. They're
Yeah,
like,
I
this is-
kind of appreciated them. In
They
a
were
weird way.
purely like, whatever is anti-Catholic, we're gonna destroy it, and then
Yeah.
we're just gonna leave. That's what I got.
Kill
from
as
them.
few people as possible. Well, we also get the moment where Barbosa poisons Blackbeard, and then that inherently poisons his daughter.
That was stupid.
Because
Who grabs a
we
sword
already
out of a
read that?
wound?
I know, but we didn't
by,
really talk about it
Who
as
grabs
much.
a sword out of a wound by the
By the
blade?
blade, yeah.
That was dumb.
She does.
That was
Whenever
dumb.
she's shown to be a skilled swordsman when she fights.
The thing is, I
like-
get why that's necessary to the plot.
Yeah.
That needed to happen for them both to be in jeopardy.
Dude.
But the way they did it, it could have been done in a
Why didn't they just
in a smarter way.
freaking have her do the? It would have been cliche, but she could have just like jumped in front of the blade
That
last
could have been
second
cool.
and trying to save her dad if
Yeah.
that's her real motivation. And that way she would have been damaged. And then in like rage, Barbosa can come at the other guy, or he can like toss his sword at Jack, and then Jack will stab him. I
Or
don't
they
know.
could have just had her get stabbed in the battle by some random dude.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be...
Poison.
Or a rock could fall on her whenever the thing is crushed. Like
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe not that one.
no, well, the point I'm making is less like
I know what you mean.
that, and
yeah.
more that there's a slew of things they could have
could have
done
done
instead of her
anything else,
grabbing a blade out of
But
there.
I feel like we're picking hairs on that one. It did help progress the plot to what we
Picking
needed.
hairs?
Splitting hairs?
Well,
Well, the thing?
Yeah.
Crap, a Davidism
Picking
caught its
nits.
way into this podcast.
picking nits.
Here's the thing: like poison dart frogs are actually symbolic of I got
Poison.
nothing.
Don't worry, I got this, AJ.
That was good.
It's symbolic of poison.
Oh man.
So Jack tricks him, and that was a very satisfying scene as Ian McShane unfortunately makes his way out of the movie into Indiana Jones level territory with his skeleton remains.
That was such a cool death.
Ooh, it
I
was
love
awesome.
That happened. It's the most satisfied I've been watching a villain get killed. Like, just seeing
Since
the...
Indiana Jones 3.
yeah,
dude,
seeing-
it was visceral.
Yeah, seeing the
Or
flesh
one.
stripped away from him in this, like, just
Yeah.
vortex of water, and then he's just, like, reaching out, just bones, and then he
yeah.
just collapses
Well,
to
the
the
thing
ground.
the thing that's cool about it is that usually like they often do that sort of thing where the villain is caught in a wave of fire or they're vaporized or whatever. But the way they, I guess, CGified it was like his skin was being like ripped off and like
Yeah. And like a
you know,
watery
layer by
vortex
layer,
almost, yeah.
and I think that was a really cool effect.
I think that also calls back to, as you said, Indiana Jones in the
Yeah.
first movie where the Ark of the Covenant is opened and
yeah.
the flesh just melts off of all the Nazi soldiers.
I think we need a
Chicken
time
mustard.
lapse where we have somebody with a skeleton that they just melt it.
Yeah.
Because that's how they did it, apparently.
That's a
Wait,
good
you
idea.
don't?
Let's find the body.
Use me.
Perfect.
I'll be all right.
Also, this is another moment of Jack acting selflessly. And this is something you don't get in the previous 3 films. It's him actually putting
Lies.
it's him putting other people before himself. Like, he doesn't care about the Fountain of Youth. He has no stake in it. Even, actually, you can argue that halfway through this movie, he didn't care about the Fountain of Youth. He decided that he cared more about Angelica.
Actually, you could even further argue that before the movie happened, he had given up on the Fountain of Youth.
True.
There was another point that kind of felt almost too out of character. I guess I don't know if they were trying to force character development or what, but when he was talking to Philip about afterlife and salvation, where he kind of like legitimately seemed interested, even though he's been chasing like immortality of some form or another, the other movies, he was, saying like, is there something I can do to like make sure if like this goes south that I can, do whatever's right for my soul. Like
that scene was like 30 seconds long.
Yeah. It just felt almost too out of character, like they were trying to shoehorn too much character development or something in there.
I think that's why they made it so short, because they just wanted to kind of like tease his interest in something more. But you're right, it was kind of like against character for Jack.
I don't know, actually. It seems like he was superficially interested. Whatever gets him the longest life is what matters to him. So
no,
just
not
kind
true.
of watching out for his own almost.
No, not true. In the end, he doesn't care about the Fountain of Youth.
No, he does, but he chooses Angelica over his love of wanting to live longer. Every movie, they've promoted him wanting to have this sort of immortality, staying on the ocean. And even in this movie, he really wanted it. And
no, I think
Angelica.
this movie is about his coming to terms with just accepting actually living life and not living forever.
Yeah, and his last line is like he was okay with the fame of, being the discoverer versus actually physically living that way.
Well, that was his way of accepting it.
He's more interested in the act of being infamous, because if you look at the other films, he's more like Captain Jack Sparrow. I'm the captain of the Black Pearl, trying to continue his legacy in that way. Mm-hmm. He never actually outright has said that he just wants to live forever.
In the third movie, he did.
He did, but I would say that, I don't know, I feel like they just kind of added that into the third one. It wasn't really necessary.
In the third one, it wasn't about him living forever. It was him controlling the ocean. And so he had some deeper desires, but that, you could argue, is the moment where he realized that's not actually what he wants. And so he saves Will. And you could actually credit that as a life-changing event where now he sees kind of the issue of living forever.
It does seem like
a burden.
This movie reflects the third movie in the exact same way where he has the ability to live forever as, the king of the, the Flying Dutchman. All he had to do was stab the heart.
The king of the Flying Dutchman?
Captain.
The king of the Flying Dutchman.
Oh, gosh.
Whatever.
He can be the captain of the Flying Dutchman by stabbing the heart. Only if he abandons his post, okay? Then he'll be a cephalopod.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's all take a moment to realize that if Jack Sparrow had got the Flying Dutchman, he would, within probably a week or so, be like already one with the ship.
Yeah, he would have abandoned it completely.
He would not be shepherding the souls.
He's just looking at his arms like, oh.
Another question.
Yeah.
If they used the Fountain of Youth after the Spanish destroyed it, so is it actually destroyed fully?
That's a good question.
I think so. I don't know.
Where's
Couldn't
that
they just
water
go
source
back and
coming
get the
from?
drips of water again and find another mermaid?
It looked like it was on its last drips, and Jack Sparrow got like the final few drips, but you could be right.
Well, they did make it seem like that was all there was, but there could have been something more if you moved
They could pull Lord of the Rings.
I do want to ask one question.
Wait.
Why was the mermaid, Serena, why did she want to help the people on the other end?
That was my question, too.
Something tells me that maybe this was like she knew some of them were good and she wanted to kill Blackbeard too, but I would also be like, how did she know that was going to happen? Like, why did she go to the trouble to give them the tear?
She did seem a little more
It's like the only explanation I could think of is that, she trusts Philip, and Philip seemed to talk to Jack more, and Jack was maybe a little more relatable. I don't know. But she just happens to show up and see, oh, there's Jack. Don't waste my tear. And then she leaves.
Yeah.
But Philip was already kind of like, I remember the first time I watched this, I thought she was going to get the chalices or something for Philip because he was wounded. I don't know. That's what I thought.
Maybe she thought that Philip would be at less risk. Less risk if she took the chance of like giving her tear to someone she trusted on the other end. That maybe Blackbeard would die and no one would come back to kill Philip, and they could But then again, she goes back to Philip and just like takes him down into the depths and like
It's all about making that plot move, man.
Strangely
it's coincidence.
choreographed there.
All right, so there is
Get
like
out of here
one-
with that, AJ.
I mean,
Coincidence.
it's like a weird setup, but when you first meet Serena, she kind of has a feeling about Philip, and she saves him without really knowing him.
Yeah.
So I guess by that logic, it stands to reason she could have that same feeling for Jack. Maybe not love.
She might just like humans enough to know that they're not evil people and wants to
Well,
help.
Or
she might be able to tell,
Yeah.
like, okay, this one is different, and they're gonna do the right thing.
She knows
Yeah.
Penelope Cruz is pregnant.
Yeah.
Who knows? She has
to
powers.
save her.
all right.
Let's
Finish
finish
off
this
our
off.
story.
Knowing Angelica will try to avenge her father, Jack maroons her on an island with a single musket shot. Now wielding Blackbeard's sword, Barbossa captains the Queen Anne's Revenge and returns to piracy, disavowing the crown. Jack finds Gibbs, who had sent the compass to locate the Revenge. He reclaims the shrunken Black Pearl and a fleet's worth of other conquered ships in a bottle. The two set out with the new goal of reverting the Black Pearl to its normal state and continue living the pirate life.
I felt like Jack marooning Angelica on this island was kind of against what the story was going for. Like I thought that this was kind of like him
love each
finally like relinquishing his earlier title and just wanting to start a new life, and then he just kind of just maroons her on an island. When I feel like they could have maybe talked it out or something.
I don't know. I feel like it's more in line with his character to leave her, because I think while he does care for her, I believe that he wants her to live, but he doesn't want to be tied down at the same time.
I think he recognizes that she's as manipulative as he is. So that's the only way for him to guarantee that she's not going to get the better hand on him.
Yeah.
And
They are who
you
they are.
kind of get that with her whole trying to come up with a reason for him to take her with him. And I think he knows she's capable of getting off that island, you know.
Yeah.
So I that's my
Okay.
She is the
My-
female
I agree.
version
I think-
of Jack.
yeah, that's
I
how
don't think
I
it's. I
interpret
don't
it.
think it counters what they were trying to develop in this. I think it just shows that that's his character and that's her character. That's just how they are, and their romance is going to be what it's going to be. You know.
I love the scene of Barbossa first wielding what's his name's sword, the Blackbeard.
yeah,
I like the scene of
Blackbeard's
Barbossa
Queen
first
Anne's
wielding
Revenge.
Blackbeard's sword and just
Yeah.
setting a course and just the mass, just,
The sword
just
of
moving
Triton.
forward.
Yeah, I did want to mention something that I forgot to mention earlier. They actually had pretty decent choreography in this one. So, you know how in previous movies they'd have their sword fights or whatever, but it looked like they're, all just kind of kids hitting the swords against each other, not really pulling any punches.
Yeah.
But then you looked at Blackbeard's fight with Barbossa, and they're actually like hitting each other and
Trying to kill each other.
trying to kill each other. Like Blackbeard knocks him over, and like
That
Is that really
brings me to
choreography, though?
bringing this back. Huh?
That brings me to another point, though. How dumb can you be being only moments away from having the Fountain of Youth and eternal life, but you decide, you know what, belay that. I'm just going to kill one man who's destined to kill me
Yeah,
before
here's this,
I take
here's
that.
Yeah, that
this
was
legless man. Let me just fight him. Like
Even though the prophecy states that I will die by
Yeah.
his hand.
that was
Ego,
dumb.
man.
It was
Ego.
dumb.
Yeah.
I don't
He
know.
didn't care.
Yeah, there's
Also-
quite a bit of there's a number of dumb things in this.
We're backtracking, guys.
When did
Sorry.
they
Anyways,
actually
well-
spell out that prophecy? Because I kind of missed the motivation of Barbossa.
They did talk
Hunting
about
him
it.
down.
Angelica mentions it to Jack Sparrow, I feel like, in the first third of the movie or so.
So they kind of make it confusing because he got the prophecy from that one zombie man who throws the little voodoo doll over the cliff, remember?
Yeah.
That's the guy he's able to prophesy things and saw
Magic.
Voodoo.
foresaw Blackbeard's demise by a one-legged man. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that was what was propelling them to find.
That's our new Teodalma, guys.
But
Zombie Man.
I just didn't feel like Blackbeard is the character that kind of gives into that without going down with a fight, instead of running away like he does in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little iffy.
Anyway.
But to add to Barbossa's motivations for it, he actually states earlier in the movie that he wanted revenge for the Black Pearl.
Well,
I know
it's
that
not
part. I just
It
didn't
was-
remember
it's
the
more Blackbeard's
prophecy
side.
specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But
prophecy was kind of
it was
meant
meant like he mentioned the prophecy, but also he said something about Barbossa. Wow, Barbossa's motivation. So I was answering that whether.
Yeah. As far as Barbossa getting the Queen Anne's revenge, though, I think it's very fitting that he finally gets a ship.
Okay.
That's not the Black
That
Pearl.
ship is right up his alley.
Oh, it's so right up his alley.
He at least with the Barbossa they set up with 2, 3, and 4. He's a full-on diva. He would have Queen Anne's revenge.
Yeah, he earned it.
Yeah,
Got his
like
diva ship.
in the first one, he like the Barbossa from 1 is not the same as 2, 3, and 4. I always say this. Sorry. In the first one, Black Pearl, very much Barbossa's ship, but
yeah.
following movies, Queen Anne's revenge is absolutely.
So I think that it was awesome that he got to do that and shows him wielding the sword and getting to see him actually get that power. But then we actually go back to Jack again, and he takes the bottles from the Queen Anne's Revenge. So he has like a sack of 20 bottles of ships.
A sack?
I like
He had
that.
a sack.
It was a nice sack. It was a sack of ships. Also, this is another example of 5 completely abandoning everything that happened in a previous
Yep.
film. I hate 5. No, I don't. Actually, I'll be completely open to how great 5 could potentially
You
be.
don't know. You don't
But,
know what we think.
Whatever.
You don't say that.
I like
yeah.
how you all had to say that.
I know. It always resounds.
This
after the first one.
movie really actually teases something that could be very exciting for the next chapter. I feel like you've got Jack Sparrow, who now has a sack of various different pirate ships that have been taken over by the Queen Anne's Revenge. You have Barbossa, who has taken command of the Queen Anne's Revenge. And you have Angelica, who is marooned on a ship, but finds in the post-credit scene, finds the voodoo doll of Jack, so she can potentially manipulate him in some way. That is the setup for a interesting sequel. Yet, Dead Men Tell No Tales does not grasp onto any of that.
What are you talking about?
Well, now I know they don't follow through on that.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, AJ hasn't seen it yet.
Sorry, AJ. Dead Men Tell No Tales is an excellent movie. I can't wait for you to watch it, AJ. It's so good.
That's it. And we've pretty much covered this entire movie, by the way.
Yeah.
But
in
yeah,
fact,
we're
we
at the
did.
end. And we should close out here.
We should.
Yeah. So on the other side, we will talk about this movie, give our brief reviews, and talk about the franchise as a whole, and see if this movie affected it or not. Okay, we're here to talk about this film, give our brief reviews, and talk about this franchise as a whole, and how On Stranger Tides affected it. So, first we're going to draw our scores, which David has here in a little bowl. It's going to be random order. So why don't you go ahead and pull one of those suckers.
First score, AJ with a 5.5.
It burns us.
Yeah.
I think that burns.
So on first watching, just casually watching this movie, it was okay, and I went in with low expectations for this movie, and it wasn't as much of a disaster as I was expecting, just because everyone hates basically 4 and 5.
Yeah.
So I was, I guess, surprised that wasn't absolutely terrible, and it was okay as far as entertainment. It didn't hurt that it was kind of straightforward and simple. So
Yeah.
when I watched it the second time with, taking notes and everything, that's when there's more glaring issues. And a lot of it I thought about it, a lot of it I narrowed down to, in my opinion, the weak link here was the director, Rob Marshall. because I kind of alluded to earlier, like you have some giants on screen here. I mean, high caliber actors who, you know, in the previous movies and other movies works that they've done, you know, they deliver. And the writing with dialogue and stuff was kind of weak, but some of it wasn't as, I mean, there's still cheese here, but I mean, the other movies had that as well. And it still, you know, was delivered fine and it landed okay. Here it's just like the dialogue was kind of jarring, and I feel like that's the director's job to step in and coach them or direct them on how they want their image to come across on screen. And it's kind of clear that Rob Marshall's forte is the choreography and the kind of not technical, but the physical maneuvering of everything on the screen, and not necessarily the fleshing out of the tone. You know, like I said earlier, this is a amazing soundtrack with score, just like all the others, but it still, like, was there a disconnect? Almost like you're looking at a lion in a zoo versus on the tundra, or, you know, in an international environment. It's still a lion. It's still got that potent power behind it, but the environment itself, you know, really contributes to the overall impression you get of it. So yeah, I think it was a directorial issue here that just the tone didn't land, and there's, you know, wasn't able to successfully gloss over the issues of the plot being driven along by coincidence and just some poor execution.
Yeah. Understandable.
All right, next up, David with a 7.
Oh, up there with Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, I see.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Rewatchability.
A little bit better.
Okay, oddly enough, it's actually not an offensive difference, really.
Yeah. I mean, I am standing very on par with David's score on this. I think that I like the Pirate franchise. I know that this score is a little bit higher than probably what most would give it, but I actually still really enjoyed it, and mainly because I watched the first time and I had a negative sort of experience with it, and rewatching it again, found myself a lot more engaged and entertained. Yeah, there are a lot of holes, but all those holes, you know, don't sink
they get
the
filled,
ship.
David?
Yeah.
They don't sink the ship.
Nice metaphor, buddy.
Thank you.
Not too cavernous.
It's not too sharp. I
Not
don't know
too
what that. I don't know what that word is.
It's like picking hairs.
I said it. I didn't know what it was. But in the end, I can watch this movie on its own without the other movies and enjoy it. You know, it's not one I'm going to pull out all the time, and I really miss the Gore Verbinski vibe, but it's not as much of a shell of Pirates that I remembered it being. And in the end, I think that it redeems itself by not taking too many risks and then succeeding on the areas they really put their heart into. So, 7.
Go.
Next up, Reese with a 7. Yeah!
Wow.
Hey.
I'm not crazy.
Man, I debated so much my score for this movie. I even pulled up the rubric that AJ put in for us. And normally I just lead with my heart, and I'm like, I'm just going to give it what my heart tells me to give it. But this one was too much of, like, I really couldn't search my heart for how I truly felt about this movie. So I put it to the rubric, crunched the numbers, and it came out to like a 6.8 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I rounded it up to a 7. And I think that actually is fair for this movie in a certain way. I didn't give this movie the chance it deserved following Outworld's End, which was just this huge, bombastic, big budget blockbuster that just threw everything in the kitchen sink in there. And this one kind of brought it back down to earth, which at the time I wasn't wise enough to get it credit for that. But I think it's a smart move for this franchise to bring it back to where the first was and have a self-contained story. That's where I thought they should have gone originally. Like, tell each story fully in one film. Have a trilogy of 3 contained stories in different locations. And this one has that Goonies, Indiana Jones feel to it that 2 and 3 didn't. And it gets points for that. It's never trying to completely wow you by special effects. It's just trying to have an adventure of discovery. And while I would have liked it if it had a more interesting character arc for Jack Sparrow, it still gives me just enough of that fun kind of sense of adventure and exploration that I enjoy. And yeah, definitely not perfect. It could have been more ambitious. It definitely riffs off of a lot of the things in the first film and isn't that original in the end. And there's a lot of kind of plot inconsistencies and plot holes. But ultimately, I'm surprised that I'm actually coming out kind of on the positive end on this movie. So yeah, I'll stick with a 7, I guess.
Yay!
So yeah.
Nifty.
I'm not alone. Next
Proud of
up, it will be Irina. It will be Irina with a 5.
5.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So even to this moment, I'm still having trouble really putting a label on it because I can't actually tell if I like it. Do you get that feeling?
Yeah, it means
A
you
little
probably
bit.
don't.
I-
I'm just kidding.
So I've been debating bumping it up to 5.5, up to 6, but I'm gonna stick with my 5 because I generally feel like 5s are reserved for movies that are fine, but you can go without watching them. There isn't really anything significantly memorable about it, but it's not bad. I just probably wouldn't return to it again. And that's how I feel about this film. Even though there are moments that are positive, it's not positive enough for it to stick in my head. So I give it a 5.
Alrighty.
What does that leave us with Noah then? 4.5.
Wait, bear with me.
Just kidding.
I was actually going to say, I was debating between putting this at 4.5 to 5.5. And my thought was, well, just because it doesn't offend me doesn't make it great. It has some... There are a couple of gems in here that I appreciate. Ultimately, I think it does fall short. Mm-hmm. But that said, just talking about it, I'd put it up a 0.5 or a whole point. So I'm willing to go 5.5 on this one.
5.5. All right. Fair enough.
Because I think, it's not amazing, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
And I think 5.5 is just that.
In that range.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. AJ.
Crunch those numbers.
Yeah, crunch them.
Crunch the numbers.
So we're at an even 6 on this guy.
Wow.
6.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually lower than all the other averages.
It's lower than all
Still.
the others, but it makes sense for this movie.
Yeah,
I think.
I don't think that's terrible.
Yeah, so
it
it's King Arthur 2004 was a 5.9, so just above that, underneath Voyage of the Dawn Treader at a 6.2.
Okay.
Which is pretty close to where I anticipated it landing. I thought it might
Yeah.
land slightly under King Arthur 2004 and above
Yeah.
Soldier,
I
but we're close.
Our,
Yeah.
our scores
Strangely-
are pretty consistent.
Yeah.
I feel like I like this movie better than I like Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
I do too, but
I do
it's
too.
close enough where,
Yeah. Regardless, I'd have to watch Voyage of the Dawn Treader again. It's
Yeah.
been a while, and this is
Yeah.
fresh in my mind. So
All right. So let's go into critics real quick. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie had a 33% with an audience
Yikes.
score of 54%. Metacritic had it at a 45 with an audience score of 6.3. And IMDb has it at a score of 6.6. Huh. So
we're right in the mix.
yeah,
Yeah.
We're right in the mix there. I feel like it's appropriate. This movie got just straight up mixed reviews across the board. A lot of people hated it, some people loved it, and a lot of people were just kind of in the middle. Makes sense. Anyway, let's go into the box office. How much do y'all think this movie made?
We all know it made a lot of money.
what's the budget on it?
Okay, so the budget, it's a little complicated. The
What is the highest number that you know?
no, I have to explain this.
Okay.
There are various reports of the budget on this movie. In some circles, this is the most expensive movie ever made. Yet there's a lot of kind of speculation about that not being completely accurate. The budget on Box Office Mojo, which is a source that I consistently use for my budgets, is only $250 million.
That's low.
But when you go to Wikipedia and a lot of other sources, they say it's upwards of $410 million.
Like double?
Almost double. But
Double
the thing
would be
with that, though,
$500 million.
is the $410 million a lot of people think that was with the advertising factored in and all that. So it's not really, I don't think it's really fair to say it actually cost $410 million to make. So I'm going to go somewhere in the middle.
Like 330?
It could be anywhere. The thing is, it's just like basically putting a blindfold on and just throwing something at a target, and maybe that's how much this cost. But let's go with like 300 range.
All right, fair enough.
I think the point stands that it's at least high up there, if not the top of the most expensive movies ever made.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, based off that 300 million or around there budget, I know it's not 300 million, but let's just say it is for the sake of this box office. How much do y'all think Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides made?
Am I going first again?
You're welcome to.
Or should I go last?
Go ahead.
Because people are going to guess around me.
You're right. We might do that, so it's up to you.
No, we'll go with everyone else first.
All right, I'm happy to go first. I like to.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll do it. It's fine. Keep with tradition. I'm going to say
And this
700.
This is worldwide, by the way.
Yeah, I figured. I'm going to say 750.
No, I swear.
750 million. Okay, AJ, how about you?
So this was May, so still a summer movie, or I guess
You can guess the same.
Yeah,
as me.
it was a May release.
No, like every time you guess what I'm gonna guess. 800.
800.
All
okay.
right.
850.
850.
Wow, you're
Arena?
going real high. You're not going lower than me.
Nope.
Good for
Arena.
you.
I'll be wrong.
775.
All right.
Ooh.
Oh.
David is our winner.
Suck it!
Really? It did that well?
This movie is the second highest grossing film in the franchise at $1.46 billion.
That's a lot.
Dang.
What?
$1.5 billion.
Yes. No,
So-
1.046 billion. Sorry.
Gosh.
Yeah, this movie made less in the U.S. than any of the previous Pirates movies at $241 million.
It's always the overseas.
But made up
On
for it
Stranger
overseas.
Tides,
Yeah.
man.
This is the best performing overseas Pirates of the Caribbean movie out of all of them.
Interesting.
So literally overseas saved it.
On
in
Stranger
a big,
Tides.
big
in a
way.
big way.
Yeah, so very successful. Definitely no
Why,
reason
though?
to not continue the franchise after this one.
It is slightly complicated though because it showed that American audiences were definitely
diminished.
waning.
So
Yes.
what year was this again?
2011.
2011?
This was also the first franchise to ever have two films grossing over $1 billion.
Dang, really?
Yes. So
Two
at the
films
time-
within the same franchise or just...
within the same franchise, yes.
Okay.
So at the time, this was, and it still is, one of the most valuable franchises, most coveted in a way.
Who would have thought?
Disney pulling in the big bucks.
Yeah,
As usual.
it's reported that Johnny Depp, or rumored at least, that he had made $55 million on this movie, which contributed to the budget. Yeah, the movie was actually supposed to be cheaper than the previous two before this. They wanted to strip it down, and the result was a stripped down movie. That is what we got, but
Somehow the budget didn't really match that.
Yeah, the budget didn't strip down, which is why I'm like really pushing back against the rumored 410 million. I honestly do think this movie's closer to the 250 that was reported on Box Office Mojo, unless something just truly, because I really did try to do my research and look into why this movie was so expensive.
There's a lot of
and
talk about
nothing-
like tax credits and subsidies and stuff like that too. So it's
it's just really confusing.
It's hard to look at this movie and think, yeah, that's a $400 million movie.
Yeah. So this movie was supposed to set up a new trilogy, which didn't really happen. There's kind of another standalone movie after this one. So I don't know if that was the intention or not. I feel like they wanted to set up a trilogy with the characters that they set up from this one. So whatever. I don't know.
yeah. Didn't Johnny Depp actually have more of a hand in like kind of directing, or not directing,
He
but
did.
like working with the writers
Writing.
and setting the plot and stuff like that?
Yeah, he had input on certain elements. Like I think
Maybe like half the budget went towards wine.
Rum.
he likes his wine.
Yeah.
No, it was. I think he actually had input on the whole Spaniard angle of this movie. Like, if not for him, they wouldn't have been a big part of this film. So, that's it. I like that.
Yeah.
Good job.
Good job, Johnny.
Good job, Johnny.
If you just say Johnny, it feels so much weirder than
it makes
Johnny
you
Depp.
think of like Shining or Here's Johnny.
Here's Johnny. Yeah.
So this movie actually grossed around 100 million more than At World's End.
Which is insane to me.
I know.
Because this is I don't remember as much marketing for this one as I did for At World's End.
I remember the marketing for it. It wasn't as like enticing as the marketing for
it
At
just
World's
really
End.
surprised me. It really must have been the overseas aspect of it.
Yeah. So how do y'all think this movie affected the franchise? Obviously, it made a lot of money, but
I'm in the middle because it did more poorly in the US. Therefore, I think that is a good indicator for how a franchise is doing. So I bet you they had a feeling that this wasn't going to be going the right direction. But they made enough movie, they're doing it anyway. So in the end, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. They're making another movie.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it made enough money for another movie. Made enough movie for another movie. No, I think
That
it made
could be
enough
true, too.
money for the new movie, so I don't think this really affected it negatively.
I think this was a sign of it
Except
turning into more
yeah.
of a kind of what Fast and the Furious has become, where it does well in the US, but it is really like relying on overseas as the ultimate crutch for it.
Yeah, I think more what had been condemning pirates is the public perception over here. I think that actually started earlier than this one. I think that started with 2. I think public perception was starting to go down, but they still couldn't quite send it to the grave. And then they saw maybe this one and they're like, all right, it's time. And they kind of review bombed it. And then we got 5. And to me, that, we'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah.
I agree. This is the first sign of like audiences starting to really turn on Pirates of the Caribbean, even though it still had a pretty decent total in the US. It's a sign of US audiences kind of just turning away from the Pirates franchise and maybe...
Well, the thing is they tried to pull the same trick about 4 times. So,
yeah.
People catch on.
Still, I think you could make like 3 more of these and they could still make money.
Oh,
but,
yeah, they could.
I mean,
But
Fast
it's
and
not
Furious.
like the... It's not the juggernaut that it once was, and at least in the U.S. But overseas audiences think otherwise and are eating this stuff up. So it obviously didn't have as big of an impact on the franchise as it would indicate from the U.S. totals.
Yeah.
So Pirates of the Caribbean is still alive and well after Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, which leads us into Pirates of the Caribbean... Dead Men Tell No Tales, the 5th entry in the franchise.
Long awaited.
Yeah, and this one came even longer. The franchise took a big break from On Stranger Tides to the next installment. The Dead Men Tell No Tales released in 2017, a whole 6 years after On Stranger Tides. The longest break this franchise has ever taken between installments, and that's what we're covering next week.
Have you seen it? Do you have feelings?
Is next episode going to be a boozy one?
Feelings.
It's a total mystery. We're gonna have our rum on hand for Dead Men Tell No Tales for sure.
But this time, it's a coping mechanism.
All right, you can find us on everywhere, pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, all podcast apps. We have a YouTube channel where we have the curated tracks from various movies that we've covered.
Spotify.
Yeah, you can just type in Franchise Killer. It's also on Spotify. Please like us, give us 5 stars, follow us, whatever helps if you enjoy what you've heard.
Or
Other
if
than
you
that-
don't, you could do it anyways.
No, if you don't, do it anyways. Or if you want to say something negative, just
Love us.
Just refrain. Just
close.
bottle up those emotions.
Belay that belay.
Yeah, next week, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. It's going to be a fun one. At least I think it will be.
Have fun. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, goodbye, guys.
I know men with a goat.